Welcome to another sort of routine episode, working on our little hub. So we're still just polishing off a few things. There are probably 3 systems left that I want to introduce. So we still have to make the daily events. So there's 8 different ones, we just have to program them really. And then we've got a difficulty setting, and essentially what I want for that is tie it to the advancements. So as you unlock advancements, you'd get a special item, probably like amethyst shards, just named differently or something like that. And depending on how many are in a player's inventory, it will buff the mobs around them. I can either use the data to adjust their health, or probably the simplest way and the most noticeable way would just be to give them potion effects. That way you can see the particle effects on them and you know they've been buffed. So yeah, so daily events, a difficulty curve, and then the last system, I don't think what it was. I have it written down somewhere. Right, so it's a more complex, what do you want to call this? Special ability system for weapons using the lore tags that you get from naming items on the anvil. So if I took out some netherite, we just named it H attacker. That's one of them. We go ahead and grab this helmet. Yep. So yeah, see how it's got in the green? That's the lore tag of items. Essentially, on weapons, I can use this to detect if an item's in a player's main hand, and also tie it to the statistic system. So the main ones would be, say, if someone has a sword equipped and they deal X amount of damage, an effect might happen. If they have a shield equipped, after a certain amount of damage is taken, something might happen. Or if they're sprinting with something, or there's sneaking. There's a bunch of different ones that I can sort of toggle on, depending on the score settings that we apply. So that's probably the last big complex system that we have to add. The daily events is pretty simple. The other main thing is just polishing off everything that's here. So I think one thing I do want to add, and I'm very glad I left these slots. So for instance, these command blocks are tied to the buttons. This is just an empty slot with the actual effect of whatever the ability of mobs are. So for instance, this donkey has Giddy Up, which gives itself speed if there's a player riding it. And what we can do is tie another command block to it and mess around with the particle system so that there's some sort of display that the ability's actually been triggered, not just it in chat. I'm not sure if I want to tie it to particles or sounds. I think I can do a lot more with the particle system than I could just playing sounds when an ability activates. But audio cues are usually more easily recognized than display cues for most people. So it's a bit of a debate which one I want to use. I can always do a mismatch. The problem is I only have one slot, so I've kind of limited myself in that regard, so I have to pick between 2. There's a few, like for instance here, I can obviously put one on top, but for this slot I only have the 1, this one I've got 2. Seems like the majority, yeah, these big sections I'd only be able to put 1. So in that case, I'm more inclined to use the particle system. No, sorry, I'm more inclined to use the sound system because there's already something appearing in the chat. So this is the visual cue, and then a sound will play for an audio cue. I think that's what I want to add. We will mess around with particle system. We will mess around with the particle system, but it is something I still have to learn. I haven't used it before to sort of tinker with the attribute system we made. So for instance, you can forge stuff on these blocks. So if we drop these 2 down, when the ingot gets deleted there, I'll probably introduce some sort of particle effect just to make it a bit more fancy. So now this helmet has the knockback resistance, some more armor and luck instead of the basic stats: 3 armor, 3 toughness. So So yeah, so introduce a particle system to all of these, which will not be difficult at all. I can specifically target the armor and weapons instead of the materials. So the amount of slots needed for this is hardly any. It should just be one line per diamond, iron, and netherite. So one there, one in the middle, and one at that end. The other system we're going to work on today is another trading system. So we've got the shulk sensor up there, and I want to make use of that because it only really having the feature to generate blocks is kind of seems limited in my head because of what you have to do to get it. It's like the dragon egg. I'd love to do something with the dragon egg. Actually, is it in here? No, I didn't do anything with the dragon egg. But that's something I would like to incorporate. And also there's another sort of just simplified trading system I want to introduce. An easy way to convert, say, iron to diamonds, diamonds to netherite at a larger than normal cost. So it won't be... I could do 64 to 1, but that seems a bit high. But just a way to make certain resources that you'd have to grind out a bit more accessible, as long as you trade in something more valuable. So, what are we going to work on first? I think I'm going to add the next layer to the mob system. So this will be all the neutral mobs. So there's quite... I think there's actually less than the passive mobs. I know the hostile mobs have the most, especially because I'm using 4, but I am giving every neutral mob 2 abilities, so it will be a bit more. Pretty sure I counted this out accurately, so all these slots filled the right number. But yeah, I think that's the first thing we'll tackle. I'll spend some time setting up all the neutral mobs, and then we'll just take a look at a few of them, and then we'll go underneath and we'll work on the secondary trading system to access the higher lore tags. So if I can find them, should be up the top. So what's this one? This is warding. Also warding. What's underneath? Okay, healing 2. That's a good example. So healing 1 will be accessible through bosses, most likely. Same with warding. For instance, we've got attacker 2. There's attacker 3 somewhere in there, and that will be what the shulk sensor will do. We'll make a conversion system where you can trade in attacker 2 and X amount of items to gain attacker 3. Same with protection. I think there's swift, which gives haste, and speed, which gives speed. Something like that. Just a way to convert them all. The other big thing that I'm going to have to start working on is the codex. So a little instruction manual, you could say, that has the majority of information on how to utilize these systems. Whether or not I put it in a book for a player to read, or I could do advancements. Problem with advancements is this scrolling system I don't like. I wish you could sort of target placement and have it branch out in all directions. But for instance, if you add, say, 10 advancements to this first advancement, they all line up on here, and scrolling down is kind of annoying. Side to side is much better. Don't know if, no, none of these are big enough. But if I were to make all of these an advancement, so you actually triggering a trap, which is very doable, just I have to work out the NBT. So to have each one of these as an advancement is 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, and then there's another 9 plus 2, 11. So there's 23 advancements I could make to incorporate this rune trap, whatever system you want to call it. And that's a lot to put in this tiny little screen. So I think a book is probably better, and just use advancements to sort of teach how to use them. Same with the armor system. Have a few advancements to show how to actually use the forging system we've made. But the majority of it I'll have to put into a codex, just with the correct terminology. Because that's a big thing, because we're making such big use of the anvil, having to name different items. Because, for instance, this block could be named a whole bunch of different things. you've got the first parameter H, it could be helmet, chest, legs, or boots, so H, C, L, or B, and then this second text, I think there's 5 or 6 different varieties, and it's easy enough for me because I wrote them, but just dropping someone in this map and trying to explain to them is not a simple thing, trust me. No matter how gifted someone is, there's an easy way to catch a different oversight. My brain runs off of those hyphens. A lot of other people have learned grammar different ways, so it's something I'll definitely need to put in a book just to make it a bit easier. And the fact that there's a button there that will generate a book, I think is the best way to do it, so they can come here whenever and generate the information needed to actually access all the features. The other thing we might as well show off. So I did make the hub teleport. Takes us to 0, 0, which should push me up here. I will delete this and I'll fix the ground as well. This is just a compass to help me remember the positives and negatives. But yeah, I don't know if you caught that. You can figure out what this is a nod to. Kudos to you. Been watching them since Minecraft first came out. But anyway, I'm going to get to work and then we'll come back and go through some of the mob abilities. Look what I finally found. I put them in the middle of the towers for whatever reason. I can finally delete them all and stop them popping up in chat. Anyway, back to work. I'm almost done. Just have to do the item frames, and then there's a few, I think, another set. Just this, and then we should be done with all the neutral mobs. All done. All the neutral mobs set up and good to go. Oh yeah, quickly. Sorry for the hotbar, if you noticed. So, I swapped between F11 and so full screen and normal because they, for whatever reason, got rid of windowed mode, which is really annoying. Panning between here and a Word document and Minecraft minimizing itself each time. So that's why the hotbar was messed up, because usually I F11 just before I record, but I forgot. Oh, so, wrong click. What do we have here? Upsell, Prospect, Lazy Day, Tough-Eyed. I'm going to say Piglin, and I think Panda. Yeah, so I didn't actually just do this. It's been a little bit. But I should be able to figure out most of them. I wonder how many there are. It's pretty simple, it's just copy and paste. I have them all written out. The only reason we're not doing the hostile mobs is they're probably taking the longest. It's kind of hard to manipulate adding attacks with the limited effects. There's only one real way to deal damage, and that's the instant damage. And poison withering is not anything special. But anyway, I'll work on it and figure stuff out as we go. Let's run through some quickly. What do we have here? Bind, web. Okay, so this is going to be a spider. What do we have? It's the show. It's also the show. So, very simple. Again, we're just executing at whatever the entity is, the Minecraft spider, and then if there's a play nearby, so it has to be within 2 blocks, it's going to give that player slowness for 10 seconds, slowness 2 for 10 seconds. They're not a huge thing, but you feel sluggish. The other one's a bit better. So the web. I copy and pasted the wrong effect. This is still showing up, isn't it? Interesting. No, I looked at the wrong one, that's why. Yeah, so web's a bit different. Still the same thing, we're starting at the entity, so execute at, and then detecting if there's a player, but now we're using the fill command. So all we're doing is placing Cobweb all around the player. So their height, so your walking height, and then 1 block in each direction. Just Cobweb. It's on keep, which means it won't replace blocks. So if there's a gap here, only put the webs here and not where there's actually blocks, which is perfect for like the mine shafts and caves. So it won't actually delete any of the walls, it will just put a web under the player. And there's a lot of interesting effects like that. sort of as I've continued to write them, I've been able to come up with some more creative things. And that's what I'm hoping for the hostile mobs, that I'll be able to really make some interesting effects and systems. I think I've done about half of them, but it's still quite a lot. There's essentially all the slots left are the hostile mobs, which is almost equivalent to both the passive and neutral mobs altogether, because there is 3 for each entity. So, another thing down again. Oh, I do have to do the eggs. I should probably do that before I forget. Probably kind of running out of time. All I'm doing is taking them out of here and then finding a spot. So for instance, actually figuring out what's neutral. I know wolf's neutral. So for instance, wolf, I think, was somewhere around here. Stop thinking. And I also have to figure out how I'm going to sort of protect these. Anyway, pack tempo, so this should be hound. Yeah, so these are wolves. And then I just delete the egg. And so the egg's done, so I just have to go through the chest. So we'll look at the wolf. So everyone enters the flurry, and strengthening hound degrades all wolves nearby. So the way I've sort of thought about the wolf is, even if you have them tamed, these effects could generally be helpful. So for instance, the pack tempo is giving every entity speed. So that includes the wolves and the players. And then the strength is just for wolves. So if you have a big pack of wolves, you can get them to essentially buff each other using the same thing. So executing at the wolf if there's a player nearby, or actually if any entity. So this one's a bit different. So even if they're engaged in combat with zombies or anything, they might still proc the effect. It's only going to tell the player if the player's nearby. And it's going to give all wolves in a 5-block radius strength 2 for 2 minutes. So it's a pretty good one. Makes it kind of worth, actually taming wolves and using them in combat. That was a novelty that they didn't really work on. I mean, they could do a whole system around pets and actually making them viable. Because a lot of them are just for show, especially like the parrot. Wherever I've done that, the parrot actually gives you buffs. So it's worth going, taming a parrot and keeping it on you. Anyway, we'll quickly build this system and then I'll just show it off, and that will probably round out this episode. Pretty simple. I don't think there's too many, 20 or so. Just this little chain. I'll get to it. Boy, do I hate doing this upside down, but lucky last. So the trade system's all done. We'll head on up and we can show it off and then I'll go through it. So building off of what we already have. As you can see, that's already got it, but we'll start and start. So rename your netherite blocks. B, L, C, or H for boots, chest, legs, or helmet. And then a terminology. So for instance, attacker, protector. There's also spring, swift, and quick. So we'll grab a helmet, since that's what I usually use. And we'll try spring this time around. Go ahead and throw it on the ground. We'll get our helmet. Cool, so now we have spring 2. We put it on. And we get jump boost 2. Pretty good. I think it's 2 blocks. Yeah. But if we go ahead and take it off, we'll need some shulk. We have to farm a lot of it, because you need 64 per piece. And we go ahead and drop it on our little shulk sensor, which you get from the warden. I think you might be able to get from chests as well as our stack of shulk. Ooh, we can hear the sound effect, but I must have a typo. It did work with the boots. Let's try something else. Might as well try H attacker. See if this fares any better. We'll drop the helmet on. Dog disappear. Curious. Make sure that boots work, because I've done the boots. New pair of boots, attacker 2. Sound effects working, so that's one thing. I have to head back down. So the boots still work. So most likely be there's a space, because I copy and paste, and in Word it auto inserts spaces for whatever reason after brackets. Yeah, it's a bit annoying. But as you can see, we now have attack 3. So we go ahead. Oh, that's not the block I want. Another pair of boots. So attacker 2. Let's give us strength 2. Attack 3. Strength 3. So we've just upgraded all our potion effects. So you could have 4 different potion effects essentially, which seems pretty good. So probably the jump boost is the one you're not going to use. So you could have... Oh, there's a spring attacker anyway. Strength, resistance, speed, and haste, I think, are the important ones. Yeah, so I'm going to play around under there and figure it out. But that is pretty much the system. So pretty simple this time around. We've just built off of the same systems we're using. It's a little bit different because we're summoning an item instead of editing the data. In that sense, it's a lot simpler. These still say blue, so they are somewhat correct. This is the first one, so this definitely works. Is it the B? Yeah, there we go. So this count has to have a B on it for it to detect item count for whatever reason. I don't know code. So I have to go through and add it all. Let me exit and come back so the chat's clear. Right, so we'll start from here. So this is the command that summons. So we're detecting 2 things again. First, we're detecting the netherite boots with attack at 2, and then the 64 of the shulk. And if they're both present, we're going to summon our second pet of boots, which now has attack at 3. The next 2 command blocks are just to clean it up. So all they're doing is looking for the same parameters. So netherite boots with attack at 3 this time around, and the shulk catalyst underneath, and then ones to get rid of the shulk. So this one 64 of shulk, and then this one targets the netherite boots with attack at 2. So essentially all of these are for the 5 main effects, and all their level 2 varieties that you get from netherite, and you can upgrade them to 3. Now we still have healing and warding effects that I haven't utilized anywhere. I'm probably going to make the first version drops and then some way to upgrade them, because warding essentially procs absorption every 3 seconds. So absorption is very useful in this game. If you have it constantly refreshing at a low amount, say 2 hearts, then it essentially minimizes any damage you take by 2 hearts. So it's a flat way to offer protection, because resistance is a percentage base, and I'm pretty sure armor is as well. Toughness might not be, but absorption is an easy way to introduce a way to essentially minus a set amount of damage off of effects, which is very helpful, important, and a very strong effect. And then healing is just regeneration. Constantly having regeneration would also be useful. But anyway, that probably concludes this time around. Probably tackle the daily events next time, as well as start talking about actually creating entities, because that's the big thing we got to work on. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.